Hello, my name is Corey and I would like to welcome you to the Claytor house. Today we are continuing with the playroom / office makeover series that we've been working on. And in this video, we are taking a little bit of a pivot from the built-in wall and turning to the rest of the room, where we will be removing and replacing the windowsills. We're trimming out the windows, we're installing baseboards, putting board and batten trim around the whole room, and we're finishing out the floating shelves on the built-in wall as well. If you missed my last video where I put up the floating shelf brackets, I filled in the top structure above the built-ins and I went ahead and painted the built-ins out. You can go ahead and check it out here. But before we jump into this video, I want to remind everybody, just like I do in every video, that I am not a contractor, I'm not a carpenter, I'm not a builder, I am an interior designer. This is my very first DIY, so please don't use this as a tutorial. Please research before you do any project of your own and only use power tools that you are comfortable using after you've researched the safety precautions. With that being said, let's get right into it. So I'm gonna start by removing the windowsills. There's the 4 big windows in here. They each have flat windowsill that juts out about 1.5 inches from the wall. And then underneath that has like a little trim piece, has an apron along the bottom. On some of the windowsills, one of the pets that they have has chewed like an edge of the windowsill off. So they just want to remove them. They also, with the drawers over here on this side, opening the drawers, they would hit that windowsill when they go to open if we didn't remove it. And then just the style and the look of them, they want flush windowsills in there and they want the windows trimmed out. Currently, there's no trim around the exterior of the windows. So I'm using the same finger jointed pine board throughout for all of the trim. So we'll do the window casings in a 4-inch trim. The baseboards are gonna be 5-inch. And then we're doing board and batten all the way around. The top board across the vertical piece, or the horizontal piece, will be that same 4 inches as the window casing. And then all of the battens, all of the stiles, all of the vertical pieces will be in a 3-inch finger jointed pine board. So all be the same, they'll all be painted that same pure white eggshell enamel all the way around the room. So I'm gonna go ahead and work on removing the windowsills, casing the windows, and doing baseboards, and then I'll come in and do the board and batten after that. To remove the windowsills from each of the windows, I started by taking a utility knife and cutting the caulk all the way around the sill. I cut it between the window and the sill, between the walls, between the sill and the apron, all around the apron and the wall. I cut the caulk everywhere to make it easier to get the pry bar into and to make it easier to pry off of the wall. I then started by removing the apron. I found it easiest to start kind of in the corner and then move my way up the side, being gentle not to pry too hard as to split the wood, but it was easiest to start from the side and then work my way along the bottom, slowly lifting as I went. I then took the apron, gave it a little wiggle back and forth to help loosen up the nails, and then pulled the apron right off. It was now easy to slide my pry bar underneath the windowsill and lift up from the bottom there. I took a peek underneath to see where the nails were so that I could pry right next to them to make it easier for those nails to lift up. Once the pry bar had loosened the sill, I then went in with my hands and, just like the apron, gave it a little bit of a wiggle to loosen those staples, and then went ahead and pulled it right off. Afterwards, I went through and scraped off the old caulking from the vinyl on the window.
You just wanna drink your beer and grab the glass and let it go down. We're going down. Now I can't hold you any longer. I can't cope 'cause you're a storm. A storm, a storm.
pieces to trim out my window, and I just mitered them at a 45-degree angle. That way they fit like this at the corners and have a really nice snug fit. I'm using 2-inch 18-gauge nails to nail these into the wall, just being careful of like where electrical stuff is. I have an air compressor, same nail gun I used on the built-ins, I'm using on these same nails, the 2 inches, the whole thing. So I'm gonna go ahead and trim these up. I'm gonna start with the top piece, then do the side pieces, and then put the bottom piece on to create that little trough-like section to put the windowsill down into.
We try to find our ways in life to give our hearts and soul a peace of mind, but you just wanna drink your wine and grab the glass and let it go down. But I can't hold you any longer. I can cope 'cause you're a storm. I wake up feeling even smaller, even when the storm is over. Was it all in my head? Did we try too hard and lost it all instead? Was it all on me? Oh, you backed away so far I couldn't see how far you drifted away. Along the street, how far you drifted away, away from me.
While I'm already sitting down here, I'm gonna go ahead and do the baseboards in this corner. So I've taken the same trim as this. This is the 4-inch trim, and our baseboards, like I said, are the 5-inch trim. So next to each other, they have an extra inch, but it's the same type of trim. And I've taken this and I've mitered at a 45-degree angle this way. So when I come to a corner, the pieces will fit together just like this on a 45, but instead of long ways, this ways, they're gonna fit this way here, right in a corner together, mitered 45 degree. And then on the straight edges of my baseboards, like on a singular wall, when I run out of length on my trim, I have it set so on the wall, you have your 45 this way, and so we don't have a straight seam that might have a little bit more of a gap. I've taken it and I've done a mitered edge this way, and that's how I'll keep my straight lines going along the wall. And then when I nail into this, I'll be nailing through, I'll nail straight through into both pieces. So I'm gonna go ahead and do this corner here while I'm sitting here and I have my trim pieces cut.
Somehow I just never learned. In the back of the schoolyard,
I continued installing my baseboards around the rest of the room. I used the same 18 gauge 2-inch brad nails that I've been using throughout the project. I started by adding 2 nails stacked right on top of one another in each of the ends, and then a couple of places in the middle, depending on how long the boards were. And then I also did just a single nail in the center of the baseboard, spaced about 6 to 8 inches apart. When I got to my scarf joints, I nailed next to where the joint was going to be to secure the first board to the wall. And then once I had the other board in place, I nailed through both boards through the scarf joint to secure both boards together and to the wall.
My least favorite state of mind, but I go there all the time, all the time. Oh, how you worry me.
Okay, I'm back today. I did some trim last night and then I ended up running out of light. So I'm back today. All I have to finish is on that wall there, that piece of the board and batten. I have the piece for that back wall there already cut. I just have to put it up, and then this wall here, I have to do that piece, and that's all for the board and batten, this vertical piece here. And then the battens, the vertical pieces that'll go up and down here, I gotta cut all of those. But because the horizontal piece is mounted at the same height all the way around the room, they all get to be cut at the same height. So I'm just gonna keep cracking on the trim. I'm using the miter saw, the same, 45-degree angle all the way around. And then when I get to the vertical pieces here, it'll be just a straight cut because it's just sandwiching in between the baseboard and that piece. So I'm gonna work on those, finish that up, and I'll catch up with you as I get further along that track.
Saw you paint a picture of a face, a face that wasn't even close to mine. I know I shouldn't be in love.
For the horizontal piece of my board and batten, I followed the same process as my baseboards. These were hung so that the top of that horizontal piece is at 5 feet off the ground all the way around the room. Previously, I had painted the 2 wall colors on the wall before putting the trim up. That way I knew where my seam was gonna be behind the board, and I didn't have to be too precise since it was gonna be covered up.
Even though you wouldn't do the same.
Because the horizontal piece was at the same height all the way around the room, all of the vertical pieces could be cut at the exact same height. So I just assembly lined those on my miter saw and was able to install them very quickly. All of my vertical pieces were spaced about 12 inches apart. Unfortunately, due to poor planning on my part, nearly every outlet and light switch had to be notched out in my boards. Every one of them was in the path of one of my boards, and this was due to me not accounting for the light switches or the outlets when I planned out my spacing in my 3D model. To accommodate for this, I just marked out super precisely where the switches and outlets were gonna be, and then used a jigsaw and sandpaper to make sure they fit perfectly around the plates. Because the spacing between the windows was not exactly even on this wall, the spacing of my vertical pieces also had to be a little uneven by fractions of an inch to make sure this had the right visual look. So for this spacing, I installed one full vertical piece directly center between each window, and then underneath the windows, I installed one piece directly in the center of the bottom of the window. And then between the center window piece and the piece between the 2 windows, I found the center and put a board there. So even though the spacing between them isn't exactly even, visually they look even because everything is centered on one another.
'Cause I love you.
I am installing the new windowsills. So you saw me pull the other ones off and put these ones on, and now you can see there's kind of like a trough in here. Like I can stick my hand down below this. So this was a 4-inch board. It was 4 inches wide, and I cut it down to 3 instead of having it on top of this and like making this level, because the bottom would have ended up being 4 3/4 inches, because it would have had this on top here. So the bottom would have been wider than the sides and the top, which I didn't want. And I also didn't want the seam on the front. I wanted the seam on the top and have the 3/4 inches here. Just for aesthetic purposes, I didn't want the seam on the front, and I didn't want that thickness. So I'm just gonna do that, and then my windowsills will be done, other than the wood filling and the caulking and all of that. The other ones, they just stuck out. The dog was chewing on them, and they wanted nice cased out windows that matched the board and batten trim. So this was the best. I used the same board for the baseboards, for the board and batten, and for the window trim. So the baseboards are the 5 inches, the windows, and then the top rail along the board and batten is 4 inches, and then all of the vertical slats for the board and batten is 3 inches, but it's all finger jointed, primed pine board.
Hear the birds and see the sun. Side by side our fears are done. All the good times just begun. We know what we have, let's hold on tight. Found what we're looking for in life. Call us crazy, but things are finally right. With you and I, the future is bright.
Okay, now I'm working on the floating shelves. Right now you see it's just the 1x2 braces. I went ahead and used a table saw to cut down our boards. This is 1/2 inch plywood, and I cut 3 pieces. So I cut one piece with a 45-degree mitered edge. For the one piece will be the bottom. I did a piece exactly the same for the top, and then I did a piece for the front that is 45-degree mitered on both sides, so that it'll sit inside these 2 pieces here and act as a little U-shaped casing over our 1x2 braces. Normally, you would go ahead and assemble your braid, like for a floating shelf, if it was like open on the ends, like truly floating, and you'd have a little piece that capped the ends too, that was 45-degree mitered on 3 sides, and you would just go ahead and nail that all together and create just like that little bracket, and then you'd slide the whole piece on in one piece onto your bracket. I'm gonna assemble it piece by piece. So I'm gonna put all of the tops on, and then I'm gonna put all of the fronts on, and then I'll go and put all of the bottom pieces on last, just to make sure everything is super secure individually. And then I'll go through and like on like the corners, the mitered edges, make sure it's all wood filled and sanded and all of that. The table saw that I have is not the best, so it doesn't give the straightest cuts. So I'm gonna have to do probably a good bit of wood filling. But yeah, so I'll just assemble them individually, and I'm using the same nails I've been using, the 2-inch nails to assemble it. I'm making sure to like on the bottom pieces, not going straight up with my nails. I'm gonna go in like, I'm gonna do some facing the back and some facing the front, and then some on the sides. Like I'll do 2 nails in one hole, like V'd out like this. I'll like shoot up one up that way and shoot one up that way. That way it's like really secure. Gravity doesn't like pull the whole piece out on the nail, or pull the whole piece with the nail out. Over time, especially since I'm not assembling them all together as one piece and it's being attached individually. These are gonna stay this, like this is painted white. These will probably stay this natural wood color. I'll just go in and like seal them or condition them or something. But I'll do that, normally, again, you would do that beforehand, but I'm gonna get them up here and then do that. and then I'll like caulk all the seams and everything at the very end when I do all of the trim and all of that. So I'm gonna get to work on nailing those up, and the built-in wall will almost be finished. I just have to finish the doors at my house. But I'm gonna nail those up, and then we will get an even clearer image of what the end result will look like.
Side by side, our fears are done. All the good times just begun.
Before installing both the top and bottom pieces of my floating shelves, I marked out where the brace supports were so I knew where I could nail into without hitting dead space inside the floating shelf. When it came to both the desktop and these floating shelves, this is where I regret using those raw shiplap boards that you saw in my last video, because not only do they not look aesthetically pleasing, they also functionally caused a lot of issues for the rest of the installation. Along the back of my desktop, as well as along my floating shelf supports, and these pieces that are casing my floating shelves, because the boards were not even along that back wall, I had to go in and sand and cut out around where some of the boards were so that my other pieces would sit flush against the wall and not be all wonky. Had I not done this, some of my floating shelf supports would have sat further forward on one side or the other because my pieces could rock back and forth on some of the shiplap boards. Trimming all of these pieces down took hours because everything was so uneven and so warped. So again, I really regret using the boards that I did for the shiplap wall. In addition to it being hard to install the floating shelves, I had to do a lot of wood filling along the seams because of these boards not being able to sit quite exactly level. Once I was done installing my floating shelves, it was time to go in and wood fill everything. I wood filled the nail holes in the floating shelves, I wood filled the seams on the floating shelves. Throughout the rest of the room on all the trim I just put up, I wood filled all of the nail holes in the window frames, in the windowsills, in the board and batten, in the baseboard. All the nails that went in got wood filled, and once that was dry, I went in and sanded everything smooth. To get all the dust off from sanding, I had to go through and give the entire room a good deep clean, and then go in and caulk along the sides and back of my floating shelves, along the corner of my desktop, and along all of the trim pieces where the boards met the wall, just to make everything look super nice and finished. Once the caulk was dry, I only had to go in with one coat of primer, and then followed that up with 2 coats of that same pure white paint color that we had matched at Home Depot.
Oh, you back away so far I couldn't see how far you drifted away. Along the street, how far you drifted away. Away from me. I held your hand when time was rough. I tried to keep your feet on the ground. But you just wanna drink your beer and grab the glass and let it go down. We're going down. Now I can't hold you any longer. I can't cope 'cause you're a storm. A storm, a storm. I wake up feeling even smaller, even when the storm is over. Was it all in my head? Did we try
I was so proud of myself. I have spent so much time designing this, and I made certain design decisions because I knew what effect they would have on the room, but like actually seeing the windows trimmed out made them look so much bigger, and I knew it was gonna happen, but I'm always still amazed at how simple things can have such a big difference on a space. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you will come back for the next one, which will be our final building video. We're building the cabinet doors, the filing drawers, painting those and putting the hardware on, installing the crown molding. At the end of next video, all of the building elements will be done, so that after that we can move on to furniture and decorating, and I can give you all of the design details. So I hope you will consider subscribing and coming back for those. And if you have any questions regarding any design decisions, anything in the room, please leave them in the comments, and I will try to get to all of those when I make that final design detail video. Until then, I am wishing you all my best. And I've got all of my pieces laid out, and then I take 36-inch clamps.
Standing on
This is how it should look when it's done.
look into each other's eyes. Tired snowflakes are coming down, collapse into water when they hit the ground. I hear the sound of empty streets,